everybody, this is Tanya Veit from AAEglass.com. How are you guys doing today? I am very excited to bring you this new technique, Cloisonné and glass. Cloisonné is something that I've always loved as a jewelry artist. That's how I started my career. Absolutely loved Cloisonné. Always thought, wouldn't this look cool in glass? So I've been kind of pondering on it for the last year or so, and I thought there's got to be a way to develop this, and I think that I've got it, and I'm bringing it to you guys. So we're going to start today with something pretty cool. We're going to start with a little bit of a jewelry project, and we're going to go a little bit into a smaller plate project, and then we're going to go into the grand finale, which is the floating wine bottle holder. For all you sellers out there, this is going to be a game changer for you. I've really been concentrating on how to come up with unique products for you guys to sell. We have a big, huge selling crowd, and if you don't sell, that's okay. You're just going to make something really cool and give a lot of wine gifts and save a lot of money in Christmas presents. But if you guys are selling out there, you need something that's very unique. You need something that's unique, that's going to sell and rise above the rest of the fused glass artists, and really provide a product that is functional, cool looking, and unique, low in cost, low in time, blah, blah, blah. I think we'll do a little intermission today talking about pricing. A lot of you guys send me emails and ask me on Facebook about how to price your items. For those of you who don't know, my former life, my career started as a self-sustaining artist, and I was in a couple hundred galleries at once, so I'm definitely the one to talk to you about that game. I can tell you what I did wrong. I can tell you what works. So I'm going to pass my pricing formula on to you guys. We'll do that as kind of an intermission. You can take that as it's worth, or you can skip ahead and get right to the wine bottle holder. So, without delay, let's get going. Getting into the projects and demonstrating, I want to show you guys a couple pictures here and truly show you how this looks like Cloisonné, okay? So Cloisonné jewelry is jewelry that is outlined in gold, and it has, a texture to it, an impression, and it's filled with enamel. So we are basically doing the same thing here. So I decided to create the gold 18 karat gold transfer for you guys, and you guys could essentially color them in with a Dremel and engraving bits. Engraving glass is a skill, guys, okay? So I want you to practice. I want you to do the easy ones first and then get to the harder ones. If you look on the website, under each design, there will be, it'll say skill level, and also in the description it says engraving level, easy, intermediate, advanced. For example, the mermaid, which you guys can see here, it's an advanced one. There's tiny areas. I wouldn't ask you to tackle that one first, but something that's very easy is actually this tree here, which you can see, and that actually, believe it or not, is pretty easy. One thing I want to point out in these pictures is you do not have to color all the areas. What's important is I'm going to teach you the proper technique so your arm doesn't hurt, your elbow doesn't hurt while engraving. It should be a very relaxing process. So if you get your technique down with the engraving correctly, this will be an enjoyable process for you. And I'm also going to talk to you about the enamels that we're using. We're using easy fire enamels. Reason being is they fire at a lower temperature. So for the wine bottle holder, we have to have something that fires at a lower temperature for everything here. And we've also whacked out one of the schedules for you, and I'm going to tell you, actually I'm going to give to you a schedule where you can actually apply the enamel, fire the enamel, and slump at the same time. So this stuff is a couple firings, but we've done everything we can to knock it down and make it easy for you. But you cannot use glass line paints, unique glass paints, colors for earth. Those things have to be fired at a higher temperature. And the gold transfers that you guys are using, again, notice I'm staying away from the word decal, but the gold transfers that you guys are using cannot be fired over 1365. So I had to find a paint that would mature under 1365. And there isn't one that fires this vibrant, so we're going to go with easy fire enamels. I'm a huge fan of them. And here's the good news. This does not take a lot of enamel. This is very inexpensive to do. It's a very small amount, which you will see. So guys, if you are ready, we will get into basic engraving, tools, safety, etc., etc. I'll show you a jewelry piece and a couple, I think we'll do a plate on camera, and then we will also do that wine bottle holder. You will need a drill press for the wine bottle holder. As far as the other stuff, you need no equipment whatsoever, just a Dremel and a flexi shaft. Let's do it! Okay, let's start with basic application. Yes, decal, decal, decal. It's just like a decal, okay? But we're not calling it decal anymore. We're calling it transfers. However, this is very bright 18 karat gold. I mean super bright. Like this is going to be the best gold you've ever seen. This impacts the substrate that you put it on. We're using glass. I want you to use the darker color glasses, medium to darker. So if you've got this decal on a clear, you're not going to see it so much as opposed to a decal on a black. So I'm really biased to this because I really want this to stand out. I want to make a very simple piece, and I want the Cloisonné part, which is the 18 karat gold transfer and enamel, to really be showcased. So I'm going to do things like midnight blue, the darker greens, Kelly green, sea blue, aquamarine, black, of course. Okay, just pick the darker colors. I'll actually give you guys a list in a PDF form of my preferred colors. Now, speaking of a PDF, I'm going to give you some fantastic firing schedules for this. We've done a lot of experimentation, especially with the wine bottle holder. Boy, was that a doozy, okay? It was been off and on the shelf. We had to find the right size hole with the right size angle, placement of the hole, blah, blah, blah. So please look at your notes. If you go into your education center at aaeglass.com, if you go into this video, there is a little PDF icon you can download, and that way you can download them to your computer and save them. And those are free, as I have decided this video will be. So that's cool. Now, 18 karat gold, let's get back to that. First thing I want you guys to do is, I've made these, I designed these, so I tried to make them so I know some worked so far, some worked and some didn't. I scrapped the ones that didn't, but I wanted to make sure that you guys had enough room to engrave. I will tell you that jewelry is actually a little harder, and if you're doing jewelry, just get small, a couple of accents here and there. You don't have to engrave everything. I would definitely suggest for you not to engrave everything. Just let the glass show through the transfer and you know, some colored areas, unless you're a rock star at this right away, but you don't want to ruin the transfer that you just paid for because it is 18 karat gold. You know, practice. I'll show you how to practice on a piece of glass. And yeah, so I did design these, and we've got 22 designs to start. And I've got some border designs that are 6 inches long, so this is pretty big. We have some pattern designs that you can use on anything, and then also jewelry. And then we just have some very large 3 to 4 inch designs that you can put on anything. Really excited for you guys for this. This is going to be something super cool. Okay, first things first, what you need to apply. This is like basic decal applying, okay? You need paper towels to smooth out the water and get the air bubbles out. You need scissors, and you need distilled water. This is very important. If you don't have distilled, throw some bottled water in there. This is important, guys, because if you don't, let's say you're in an area like we are in Florida, our water here, our tap water is terrible. It's got chemical in it, it's hard water. When you guys fuse these, you could still see, the overcoat which outlines the transfer. That's not where we want to be. That's telling me, if you guys send me that picture, that's telling me that your water is no good for decals. So what I want you to do is use distilled or bottled. Second thing I want you to do is make sure that you have the water warm, okay? Not cold, warm. These transfers are quite large. This is 6 inches long, and it's hard to apply this to the glass. So you want to make sure it's warm, not hot, a little bit of warm, like lukewarm, and that will release it very easily. Now what you want to do is go from the transfer to the glass. You don't want to put it in the water, soak it in the water, and then release it in the water, the backing, because it's going to curl up on you, and then all of a sudden you're done. So do it the way that I am showing you, okay? All right, so we're going to go ahead and dunk this in the water. Now, I really want it to, it's going to curl up, the backing is going to curl up, let it curl up. I really want to make sure that this transfer releases easily from the water, easily. I shouldn't have to pull it and mess with it to get it off the backing, because you could actually stretch the design and stretch the transfer. So what these are, we use 18 karat gold and then screen print them, and then we put it on a backing, and then it's an overcoat over them. So that overcoat is kind of pliable. So what'll happen is if you're forcing it to come off the back of the paper, you're going to stretch the design. You're just going to have to go with it. Yeah, I mean, you know, these aren't 99 cents a piece. You know, we're talking $7.95 here, so we don't want to waste that. Okay. All right, let's see how it is. So let's see, we can pull it. So right now I'm trying to pull it, and the top is coming very loose, but the bottom is just kind of is being a little stubborn. So I don't want to force it. So I'm going to let it soak a little bit longer, okay? Can't soak them, 25 minutes or anything, because what's going to happen is the decal is going to float. I said the word. The transfer is going to float right from the paper. So be careful of that. But all of this starts with good technique and good application. Another thing is when you are cutting your transfer from the paper, I want you to cut as close as you can to the design and get rid of that extra overcoat, because that's just stuff that burns off in the kiln. And if you do have some hard water, we don't want to see that image. We don't want to see the overcoat image around the transfer after it's fired. I better stop doing that. Okay, now this is black glass. I've made sure to clean this very well. We clean our glass with alcohol and water half and half. And that's how we clean our glass. We don't use any other cleaners. And what you're going to do is go from the paper to the glass directly. So I'm going to go ahead and just let that release a little bit slower. Get that positioned on, put my finger on, and watch how I just pull it out, okay? So I'm not stretching the design at all, and I just pull it out. Now, you could continue to stretch the design if you start pushing things around and, stretching it this way. It'll stretch and it'll fire stretch, and we absolutely don't want that. So once you've got it down, leave it, okay? So make sure you're positioned. Grab your paper towel. And what I do is I blot first. Remember, 18 karat gold, guys. Gentle. Take care of this thing, okay? So we blot first. I don't want to be wiping and then stretching the design. That's the most important thing. So blot first. It's going to be stuck to your glass, and then there's little bubbles and things like that here. You're just going to go ahead and smooth them out, okay? Why do we need to get the air bubbles out? Because when the transfer is firing, if there's an air bubble underneath there, it will create an air pocket, and then it'll poke through, and then you'll have a pinhole in the design. So we don't want that, okay? All right. What I want you guys to do is to let this dry for 6 hours. 6 hours, okay? Let it dry. Just don't pop it right into the kiln. We've got to let this whole entire thing dry before we fire it. Then what you're going to do is fire it to the high fire schedule that I've given you in your PDF. And we've actually fired the gold transfers from 1300 to 1365. So there's a wide range of things and processes you could do in there. What are those things? Tack fuse, contour fuse, fire polish, and slump. So you want to cut down on firings. So take a look at your PDF, and I'll show you ways to cut around if you want to get two things done in one. Okay, once this is fired, look at that. Look how nice it's upside down. Okay, so once this is fired, this is what it looks like. Kind of cool, huh? Beautiful, bright gold, ready for our engraver. Cool. So pretty, so gold, so wonderful, so awesome. Let's look at it like this over here. Yeah, it's hard to get it with the glare, the light and the black glass, but boy, it is awesome. Okay, so let's do a basic engraving exercise before we get into a couple of projects. Okay guys, there's a few things that you're going to need before you start engraving. The first thing is a Dremel. Now, do not try to engrave with just your Dremel. You're going to want to get this little attachment right here. They're about $30 at Home Depot, and it is called the Flexi Shaft. Make sure that the Flexi Shaft matches the model of your Dremel. If you look on the back at the hardware store, you'll see the model number of the Dremel. You don't need an expensive Dremel. Get the cheapest Dremel they have, as long as it goes about 25,000 RPMs, which it says right on the box. That Dremel that you've had in your garage for 25 years, that one's going to work. This is the tool that you need. It's just like a pen, and then you're going to put your engraver bits in here. Now, this is the most important thing that I can tell you. We do have a set. Hold on. It's not a selling plug. Okay, this is what you need. All right. I mostly use the ball bit. It is the one that works the best. A lot of you guys got these from us already because I've done other videos with these, but this comes with 30 of the ball bits, and they're $24.95. Now listen, I know you're saying, oh Tanya, I can go to Harbor Freight and buy one of those sets for $7.95. You could, but They do not sink and engrave into the glass. You get what you pay for engraving bins. You do not want to mess around. This is 18 karat gold. We're doing fine art here. We're not doing craft. Spend the money. They last a long, long, long time. Okay? So these come in different sizes. In some cases of the transfers, designs that come to a point, like this daisy design right here, the petals come to a point at the edge. I will go to Home Depot and buy one specifically for the Dremel. They're about $6 or $7 a piece, and it is like a football or a cone. I'll show you guys a picture of that right here. I definitely would pick up one of those because a ball can't get into pointy points, so you've got to have the right tools. If this takes off pretty well for AE Glass and for you guys, I would invest in getting those. We do it to buy by the thousand, so let's see what happens. So the ball bit, right bit for the right size. A tiny bit gives you a tiny line, a big bit gives you a big line. So have a piece of scrap glass right next to you, especially if you've never engraved before. So let's get this guy out of the way. The other thing that you're going to need is you're going to want to wear a mask, okay? Although we are using water with this to save the life of our bit and not thermal shock our glass and crack our glass, there is some glass dust that's flying around, so I'm going to go ahead and wear my mask, okay? Just one of those hospital masks, the NIOSH approved with the little respirator in the front is fine. You do not need a full-on respirator. It would be uncomfortable for you. You might have an engraving session that's 30 to 45 minutes long. You're not going to want to wear that. One of these is absolutely fine. It's more of a precaution. We are wetting the glass that we're engraving, so that will take care of all of the dust. But just in case you don't have enough water and it starts going in the air, you're going to want to wear one of these. I would wear a bib or an apron because you're going to get what we like to call Dremel juice on your clothes, and make sure that you have safety glasses on or your regular glasses. Now, glass is not flying everywhere, but you are engraving, and perhaps you could get a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of glass dust in your eye, and that wouldn't be good. And so you're going to need your Dremel, your flexi shaft, the ball bits, and glass, obviously, and water. Water cools the life of your, it saves the life of your bit by cooling it, and then also your glass so you don't crack it. Whenever you're using any kind of diamond tool, you have to have a water source. This includes lap wheels, belt sanders, saws, grinders, even these guys, even these little tiny guys, okay? You've got to have water to cool the glass. So let's go ahead and just do a little bit of practice first. For those of you that have done engraving in my classes and the videos, just go ahead and skip to the next part because we're just going to do a basic engraving lesson. Now, the first thing that I do is I want to get used to this, especially if I've ever done this before. And technique and form is everything. Glass engraving is a skill. This is a technique. This is a skill. The better you get at it, the more you can charge for your pieces and the more elaborate you can get with your pieces. Okay? So first thing is I want to make sure and set up my Dremel so it shouldn't hurt. You don't want your arm to hurt. If you're engraving for a long time and what happened is the first time you engrave, you'll have like an hour session. You'll feel the little bit of tingly, and that's from the vibration of the Dremel. That will go away. Don't panic. But if you're getting pain like right here in your forearm, this means that you're applying too much pressure, or you're just at an awkward angle. So the best angle that I have found is actually I'm engraving on a waffle grid. It catches the water. Otherwise, you'll have a big old mess. I'm sure most of you guys have these in your studios. You can get them from AE Glass, but they're just a waffle grid with little half-inch squares, and they catch the water nicely. But when I put the Dremel out, I want to make sure this is a heavy guy. My cord is to the right of me here. My cord is to the right. This heavy guy is right here, and I pull it so I have enough slack, okay? So in other words, I'm not fighting against the weight of the Dremel. I have all this cord. So I put the Dremel right in front of the grid, and then I take the cord and I wrap it around like a C. So it's around. It's not like this. See, now the Dremel's pulling from me. It's not natural, and I have to have, it's causing resistance, and I'm going to try and engrave like this, and it's going to end up causing me, if you do anything too long and you're flexing your arm, things are going to hurt. So I make a C and I lay the cord down around. Now I got my elbow on the table. Get yourself positioned nicely. Now I have my elbow on the table. Get yourself positioned nicely. Have the table. None of this down here. Things are going to hurt. Right up here. It all starts with form. You should be comfortable. And also, make sure that when you hold this engraver in your hand, see that button right there? That's the release button of the bit. You want to make sure that that's turned up or a way that you're not going to keep on hitting that button, because that will stop the Dremel right in the middle of what you're doing. Okay, so I kind of make it so my fingers are out of the way of that button. I'm getting comfortable first. And the other thing is, you do not have to put a lot of pressure. These engraving bits are awesome. If you decide, you know what, I don't need Tanya's engraving bits, I got my own source, I'm going to go get them. All right, but I'll tell you this, you better make sure that that is sinking into the glass nicely. If you are struggling and engraving and pushing, they're not good bits, okay? You guys should be paying between 25 and 30 bucks, right around there, for a nice set of engraving bits. And be careful with that. You want mostly the ball head ones, because if you get a whole set and there's all these things you're not going to use, you just wasted your money. So you want to get, you know, the ball sets, okay? All right, so now what I want to do is, this is my scrap glass. First thing I want to do, if I've never engraved it before, I'm going to take an oil-based Sharpie, and I'm just going to make some lines on my scrap glass. And I want you to make a circle. Make sure it's an oil-based Sharpie, not the black ones, or it will come off in the water. And just draw a little design. Just practice. Little smiley face here. Let's do some hair. Okay? And swirly is the hardest. Circles are the hardest. Get some of those on there. And all I want you to do is follow those lines. Give it the Sharpie about 2 minutes to dry. The first thing you're going to do is spray with water, as we just discussed. Okay, so that Sharpie's not coming off. It might wear off. This is just a practice thing, guys, but we're just to get your groove down. Now, I've got these two little eyeballs right here on my smiley face, and so that might work for this tip. You know what, but I'm not really sure. So I'm going to test the size of my tip and see what kind of line that it makes. Until you get used to it, you've got to do this. So let's get out a bigger one too, so we can kind of show the comparison. Okay, Dremel speed is going to be on medium, not high. Just have some control. So the first thing that I'm going to do is check my line. I kind of checked it out, did a little engraving, it looks good. See that glass dust right there? That's actual dust. It's because that the water's not hitting that area. You'll see when I'm engraving throughout the video, I'm constantly pushing the water into the area. I'll show you why. But just to kind of make sure everything is wet, but you can also, it starts to help you when you have a lot of the glass dust in the water. You can kind of see where you've already engraved. But anyways, so it's hard to see when it's wet. So I'm just going to mash this down, my paper towel, and then I can clearly see how skinny that line is. Okay, you know what, that looks a little skinny, and that's going to take me a long time to get that area covered right here. Let's say I was covering in the smiley face. That's going to take me a long time to do that with that line. So what I would have to do is change bits. In order to change bits, you just press the button down, turn it, that's releasing it, turn the collet holder rather, pull out the bit, grab a bigger one, and then twist it. You're still holding that button down, guys, okay? And now let's see what this ball bit makes. A lot bigger of a mark. So when I have a design like I have, which is the eclectic flower design. I love this one. I'm looking at these areas where I'm going to tackle, and I'm thinking, okay, this guy's going to work right here. This will work here, this big one. This will work here. So when I engrave, especially right here, I'm not going to get a real tiny bit and try to do this whole area. Now, tiny bit means a tiny ball means a tiny bit of diamond head on it. It's a tiny head. So obviously, I'm going to burn through the diamond coating on that bit much quicker than I am this big bit. So we want to use the right bit for the right job. What happens when the, how do you know when the bit is done? It doesn't engrave anymore. That's how you know. It doesn't, you start to go try to engrave and it's just not doing anything. It's because it's just metal on glass. So, you know, you get new ones. But here's the thing. Let's see how this goes, and I can certainly invest in getting the tiny, like a set of all tiny bits. I want to hear from you guys and see if you love this engraving, and I'll watch Facebook group and see what you guys do. All right, how long does it take for each engraving? I'm going to show you some pictures again. You've already seen them, but we're going to show them again, and I'm going to show you the times. But something like this right here, this will take me about 15 minutes, all right? So let's say 30 minutes for you. We'll talk about pricing later. But the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I don't want to keep switching bits. That's too time consuming, guys. The project should be very simple for you. You want to put together a very simple fusing plate, and then you want to spend your time engraving, not the other way around, unless you can, especially if you're a seller. So we put together some just very simple fused glass projects that are 6mm thick, 2 layers, and we really concentrate on our time spent being in the engraving, not making the actual glass piece itself. As you can see from the pictures, this is just 2 layers of glass, Tecta, black, fired, took about 3 minutes to put together, fired it, and then the artwork is in the engraving. So I want you to think about that when you're making these things. So first thing I'm going to do is take this guy, and I'm going to go for the big area since I've got the big one on, and kind of look at the areas that I can get it. Don't force it. There's a couple pointy areas in here that you can see. We'll go ahead and change our bit to that cone bit from Home Depot that I told you about. So I'm going to go ahead and engrave. I'm actually going to turn the Dremel off, and I'll do a voiceover so you don't have to hear me yelling over the Dremel. Okay, everybody, here we go. Turn that Dremel on. Medium speed is fine. You don't need to go super fast. If you go too fast, you could actually make a mistake and go over the gold. Lots of water to start. You can't have too much water. It does get distracting with the glare, but you'll get the right feel for it as you go. Since I have the larger ball bit on, I'm going to take the largest areas of the transfer for the engraving. I will then look at the entire image and use the large ball wherever I can before I change bits. This saves a lot of time, and it's much more efficient to do it this way. As I'm engraving, you'll notice that I'm actually accommodating my flex shaft with the piece. I'm continually turning the piece. I don't try to go for anything awkward, and the piece accommodates me. That's very important. You don't want to be running with your Dremel and reaching far to get areas. You're going to make a mistake, and that gold transfer you could actually grind it off. You'll see me do this later on purpose, just so I can show you guys to be careful for that. I guess the golden question is, how deep am I actually going? Again, these are really, really good bits, and what's important is you actually are not putting too much pressure or exertion into the engraving. I'm letting the bit and the diamond head sink into the piece and kind of guide me. Definitely practice, guys, before you start doing one of these, but it's pretty quick. You don't need a lot of practice, 10 minutes and you'll be ready to go. Notice I'm spraying more water, and that the water is getting milky. The milkiness is from the glass dust that you're accumulating. I actually like it when that happens, because I'll start pushing it into areas, because then I can see the areas that I've engraved clearly. So, if you've got a big area, go ahead and outline it with the Dremel. You don't have to get all the glass off between the lines. I actually like a little outline, and I like a kind of a painterly effect. So you see I'm kind of sketching with the Dremel. I really like that. I like the shabby chic look. We'll look at some pieces later where it doesn't have that and where it does. But you definitely want to get deep enough where you can apply the enamel, which will be the next scene. It's got to fall into those grooves. So I'll go over it 2 or 3 times. A piece like this would take me about 20 minutes, especially if you have good diamond engraving heads. If you guys have poor ones, you'll know it, because you won't be able to go deep, and it'll be very hard, and your hand would already hurt at this point. Now you can see I'm making a decision right here. There's a smaller area. I am not even going to attempt it. You could actually just remove the whole area without paying attention. So you can see that I kind of stopped for a second, and there's that thin line, and thought, oh, maybe I can make it. Don't even try it. Just switch your bit. You'll get used to it, what bits go in what area, what size bit you need for each area. This will come as second nature after just a day of engraving. So I am going about, if we had to put a number on it, I'd say a 1/16 of an inch deep. The deeper you go, the more striking the enamel will be, and it'll have that carved look and that very engraved look, which is pretty awesome when people feel the plate or jewelry or whatever you've made, or the wine holder. That's a pretty cool feel. So I'm going to go ahead and change my bit because I have cleared out all the areas that I know that large bit will fit. So let's change the bit into a smaller one. And as you can see, I'm taking the head of a bit and I'm kind of fake, engraving just to kind of see if that would fit the line, and that one doesn't. So I have to actually go a little bit smaller. In those smaller areas, really go for your tinier bits. It's always okay to go bigger, rather to go small and remove a little bit of glass than to remove too much, because you can't put it back, obviously. And don't forget, lots of water. You can see the milky water actually setting in the recessed areas. And this actually really helps me when I'm engraving, because I can see, especially if I'm using a very dark glass, I can see the areas that I've already engraved. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on here. I wouldn't drag you guys through this whole thing, but the most important thing that I can tell you is, as far as technique goes, is to be comfortable. Loosen up your grip every once in a while, because you will be tense by doing it, and take your time. Let the ball bit guide you. Let it guide you. It'll just work itself into the glass itself. You don't need to push it. It's working it in. You're just guiding and slightly pushing it. You will get used to it. If it hurts when you're done, you're not doing it right. I've gone through all that for you already. I had a sore arm after a day, and I figured it out how to put the Dremel down. So let's go ahead and continue on here, and let's get to the football bit, the pointy bit, so you can see how to use that. Okay, this is now the football bit, or the cone bit. And I'm going to tell you there's a way to do this. I'm going to show you the wrong way first. This is not the way to do this. I repeat, this is not the way to do it. So I'm just going at it. I just go at the tips. I'm kind of looking and go, okay, it's a pointy bit. And you can see right there, I just decided to go at it like I'm writing with a pencil. Well, what happened was the bit is so pointy as I actually took out part of the gold right there. So going erect, as I'm doing right now, that is also not the way to do it. That is not the way to do it. So then I realized this, and I realized that I have to turn the glass and pull away from me, and pull away from me. So I actually set the point. Watch this. I set the point in the part that I have to go and turn it away from me, and then I pull the point towards me. So I'm not going at it head on. I put it in the point, and then I pull the Dremel down and pull the point towards me. So I'm actually doing it upside down. Go to the point and pull the flex shaft towards you. Go to the point and pull the flex shaft towards you. This will give you a perfect point. Flip your glass so the point that you're doing, the very top of the point is actually closest to you. And then you're going to start with the flex shaft away from the point and then pull the Dremel into the tippy top of the point. I hope that makes sense to you guys. That's the best way to describe it. So you're actually going to flip your glass upside down, actually flip it upside down, and then so the point of the piece you're doing is closest to you, and pull into it. Okay, we are all engraved out. That took me about 15 minutes. So you'll get better. It's so important to work on technique. You heard all the suggestions that I made, especially with the cone tip. You don't want to use that. It's a pointed tip. You don't want to use that to get the big areas. It's just going to look very sketchy. Now, when you clean this thing, I want you guys to do me a favor. I don't want you to take abrasives, paper towels, sponges, anything like that. You're simply going to hold the piece up, take the water, and you're just going to spray so it runs down. We don't want to damage that gold in any way. We don't want to dull it. We don't want to, scratch it with something. You can see with your engraving that you can easily take out gold lines, as you saw, and make mistakes and actually remove the gold. So that's not something we're trying to do. You're engraving glass, and that gold is part of the glass now. So just go ahead and run that down, and what you're going to do is dry it. I usually just take paper towels So form is very important. Technique is very important. This is a skill. This is something that you're going to get better at. My arm does not feel numb. I don't hurt here and I don't hurt here. If you are hurting after that, and I don't do a lot of engraving. This is the first engraving we've done in the past 2 weeks, just because this was working out. But, you know, if your form is good, you won't feel pain. Remember, rest that elbow and relax on the grip. Just make absolutely sure your elbow's on that table. The table's supporting you. Get a lower chair. I'm sure you guys can tell I'm a little person right now because I have a very, very, very short chair underneath me. I want to be low. I want my elbow to rest. I want to be comfortable. Low chair. Yeah, if you got pain here, you're gripping too tight. Stop gripping. Let it just relax. The Dremel is engraving. These bits are awesome. They just sink right in to the glass. And also, just a side note, fused glass is glass that has already been fused is easier to engrave than glass that has not been fused. So you guys can see a couple pictures of the sun here where this could literally be an ornament. This was something that I made just on a piece of black glass, and I just fired the transfer on and then I engraved it, and my idea is to just use it as an ornament. It's a single layer of glass, but it hasn't been fully fused, so it was a little harder to engrave, so keep that in mind. Just put this on a paper towel. Grab another paper towel and simply blot. Always being aware that the gold is on here and you could scratch it just like you could scratch the glass. So you're just blotting. Now, as you start to blot, you're really going to see the grooves and the engraving of what you did. Now, there are 2 ways to apply the enamel. There's a wet and a dry method. I'm going to show you both. And you will also look at pictures and see which has been done with the wet and which has been done with the dry. I like the dry method. It's very quick, it's fast, it's not precise. Dana likes the wet method. It's very precise. You can put color fields exactly where you need to, and you can certainly do both. So you have to decide which is best for you. But remember, if you are a seller out there, your time is the most important thing. Time is what is hurting your sales. Time to make pieces. If you're taking 3, 4, 6 hours to make a piece, and then you're saying you can't get you know, X amount of dollars in your town, which I hear all the time. We're going to talk about that because that's not necessarily true. And you've got to find a way to cut your time down. Your time is valuable. If you can only get $60 in your area for a piece of glass, you can't be spending 9 hours on it, right? You've got to have a formula, and which I will show you. Okay, so as you can see, this is starting to turn gray, and it's turning gray because that is where I engraved. So, I mean, this is pretty deep. It's pretty awesome. This part right here, I see right here, I could probably have gone a little deeper in the petal. Remember, we're going for that Cloisonné look, so you want that enamel to drop in there. If it's too shallow when you swipe the enamel in or paint it, you're not going to have enough and you're going to see a lot of the black glass come through. That's not necessarily bad. I love the folk art look. I love the sketchy look. That's what I really like about this technique. So you don't have to be perfect with your engraving. This is not perfectly even. You can see some of my grooves that are higher and lower than others. I like that. I like the glass to come through and show that shabby chic kind of look. It looks so handmade. So let's go. I can see there's a black part right here that I missed. Like I really just missed that black part. So I would touch that up. Now here is that gold line that I removed. I didn't go deep. I just scratched it. I actually was thinking in my head that I didn't like that there, so I wanted to take it away. So I went very lightly with my drill bit and went right over that gold, as you saw in the demonstration. So now we've dried it and you can see it there. We're not trying to engrave. I just removed that gold. And if you make a mistake, own it. Fix it. If you go into a piece of the gold, you go into the piece of the gold. You know, if you go into, I was just say a portion of the gold, I did that right here to show you guys you did. It's going to happen the first time you're engraving. It gives it more of a handmade look. I've done things where I've actually almost dropped the Dremel and gone right across it. You know what I did? I formed it and just lightly just kind of remove the whole portion of that design, but you work with it and you can fix your mistakes very, very easily. All right, so let's go ahead. This is pretty clean. I'm going to swipe this, make sure this is clean, and we're going to apply the enamel. We're going to do the dry method and we're going to do the wet method. Now for the most exciting part, we get to color this thing. I love that, okay? So make sure that if when we go through the next 3 projects, just to let you guys know, we're not going to go through engraving every single time. It just takes too much time and too much film, and I promised you guys this by Thursday, and today's Tuesday, so we need to get going. So please rewind this section. Again, I'll break it down for you. Engraving and enameling. It's very, very important, the technique, okay? You don't want to waste a lot of enamel. What's good about this is it hardly takes any enamel. And I'm talking cents, like 50 cents an image. So that's good for you guys. Now, I found this little tool right here, and it is from a pottery clay sculpting set that I got for $7.99 on Amazon years ago. Anything that you can find with a little scoop on the end is absolutely perfect. And you want it to be metal because the enamel releases from it very easily. Don't use a popsicle stick or anything that's wood because it just sticks to it. Now, we're going to do the dry method. This method is a little bit more haphazard. It's quick, it's fast. I did this rainbow plate with the Zentangle design that I absolutely love. It's my favorite plate right now. And normally I give things away, but I'm actually keeping that one. I absolutely love it. I did the dry method. It's very quick. It's very easy. Remember, if you don't go deep enough with your engraving, you're going to see the sketchy, that sketch kind of look, which I love. That's my preferred method. I don't like to fill in all the areas with the wet. It really depends what kind of artist are you. And you got to get like a theme going. We'll talk about that a little bit more when I want to talk to you guys about selling and pricing. But so basically what I do is I just take the dry enamel, I drop it in the areas, and then I swipe with my finger. I am wearing the nitrile exam gloves. I like them to be super tight, so I pull them for this. And these are actually large. Maybe a medium would have been a little bit better. But I want you guys to have these on. Now, the enamels are lead-free. I just kind of thinking if I have cuts or something, we probably don't want that in my skin. But they do have some cadmium and other metal oxides in them that do not make them food safe. These are easy fire, low fire, lead-free, but they're not 100% food safe. So what you're making here are art plates. We're not going to call them, dinner plates or anything. You're going to make them for the vanities and putting keys in and just little showpieces in your living room and other people's living rooms. So at this time, they are not food safe. Okay, I want to make that very, very, very clear. Okay, so think about what you're doing with them. All right, so little scoop right here. This takes the tiniest amount of enamel. Now, when you do the dry method, there is a little bit of waste. With wet, there's no waste, but with the dry method, there's a little bit of waste. So try not to use too much enamel, and I mean tiny. So I've got a little rainbow palette here. I have given you guys a list that was in the newsletter, and it listed the enamels. I am finding that these are the enamels that I keep going to for my designs. I like the way the dark red fires for the poppies. That's going to be a real popular one with you guys. I like the way it's a real deep red. The yellow orange I like. So I've given you guys a list of those that I prefer to use. Those are the same enamels that I use every time I do this technique. Of course, there's 32 colors. You could use any color that you wanted, but these are my preferred ones. And I don't want you guys to be surprised. If you go to use a chocolate enamel and you're not really, that fire's a little light. So I want you guys to be not wasting money here, okay? But these go a long way. This is not where your expense is. It's your time, guys. I've got a nice color palette here. So let's just kind of do a rainbow effect. And of course, you could choose any color. It doesn't have to be rainbow. So you want to be working on a paper towel, and then because you want to be able to wipe your hands as you go. So as we apply the enamel, we're going to wipe our hands. Another thing is you don't want to, if you're doing the dry method, you don't want to get this wet right here, okay? So you don't want your hands to be wet. So no water involved with this. So I'm going to take the most minuscule amount. So little goes a long way, guys. And you're going to have to dump it if you're doing the dry method, and I don't want you to do that. So I just want you to imagine how long this jar would last. These are only $16.50 for a 1 ounce. How long would this last? I have the tiniest amount right here. It's really tiny. What I'm going to do is dump it on here. Okay? I'd rather have you have to go back and get more, and then I spread it with the back side of my tool. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go like this far down with the red. So this is this dry method right here. You could just do, a gradation of colors. This could be turquoise and purple, only 2 colors, or white and turquoise. But That's really up to you. I'm just showing you the rainbow because it looks pretty, and who doesn't like a rainbow, right? All right, so I see right here it's a little deeper. Now I'm not going to grab more. I instinctively go to grab more, but you don't need to. I've got all this right here that I can just kind of push in. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to press the enamel in with our fingers and then pull, okay? So it's press it in, all right, and then we're going to pull. All right, I've got a little bit on there. Pressing it into that engraving that you've done. Now I can see there's some black lines coming through. That's because my engraving wasn't even, and I love that to happen. So if you don't like that, you could spend a lot more time engraving to get it even, to get your depth even. But I don't know, I think it kind of takes away from the engraved look myself. Pressing and pulling. Pressing and then swiping your finger across very carefully. You know, you don't want to dig the stuff out. That's a nice little thing right here. So you've got that little black coming through, that little black coming through. That's where I'm leaving it. I'm showing my viewer that this is an engraved piece. I want this to look this way. There's nothing wrong with that. If you don't like it, I want you to know, go right back in with your engraver and go deeper and even it out. But now, if you're a seller, you're taking more time. So it just kind of looks like that Mexican folk art. I love that, where you can see the pottery and it's like engraved and the paint inside there. I love that. All right, so don't worry about the background right now. I'm going to go ahead and wipe right on my towel. Perfect. Take my tool so I don't contaminate, wipe that on that. Now I'm going to go with the citrus. Now, something that's very important, guys, is you are wearing a mask. You are wearing a mask with this. This is dry enamel, and you've got to have it on, but I would sound like this, so I'm not doing it at the moment. So I'm living dangerously for you. Do you understand that? All right, so please wear your mask, wear your gloves, wear the mask. I cannot stress that enough, okay? Because you don't want to inhale this stuff. Okay, so I'm going where I'm kind of being methodical. I mean, it's the tiniest amount. Look how much is in here, and look how much I'm using. And I want to put it in the areas, and so I'm smoothing it out with the back of the tool. Anything with a little scoop on it. I will give you guys the source of this. I will find it and put it. I know it was around $7.99 for a little clay sculpting set, really inexpensive one, and then I just grabbed the ones with the little scoops on the end of them. Such a tiny amount. Okay, so now I'm going to press, pull, press, pull. Okay, so I've got a little orange going into this red up here. Love it, like it. Now, if you want to do a little bit of a gradation, I have a little bit on my fingers, just a little bit. I'm going to kind of just swipe that red just a little bit and kind of push that in and blend it. My orange is falling in down here. I don't care. I want this to be, this is for gradients. This isn't for perfection. You want the colors to kind of blend into each other. Cap on top. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and then I'll show you how to clean this up. Okay, so now I've got that all done. I want to make sure I'm kind of just pressing that in, and then constantly be cleaning your fingers. And then what I do is I clean my fingers, pull that real tight, pull your gloves real tight, make sure you're clean, no wetness. It's tempting to just dip them in water, but you don't want to do that. And then what you want to do is swipe right across the top, and it just cleans everything right up, right across the top. Now I'm going to tell you the truth. I use my bare fingers a lot because I don't like the gloves when I do this. And I just wash my hands afterwards. So what I'm trying to do is make sure there's no moisture on your hands. I'm just cleansing, just cleans it right up. Look how nicely that is. Why? I mean, it's almost perfect. Who knew? Who knew? So you're not trying to dig into it. You're simply swiping across the top. Now, you're going to fire this piece, guys, to 1250 for 10 minutes. That's the enamel firing. And that will turn perfectly glossy, as you can see here. Some of that graving strokes that you did will come through that black glass, which I love, again. And if you don't like that look, and it's more of a shabby chic, very handmade look, then you would go to the wet method. But do remember that the wet method takes twice as long. So what I'm going to do right now is just kind of make sure that these little areas are cleaned up. Make sure you're wiping your fingers. You can also grab a cotton t-shirt. This is just, they sell these at Lowe's. I'm sure you have some in your home, but they sell these at Lowe's for very cheaply. And so I take the cotton t-shirt and wrap it around my finger very tightly, and then I just kind of clean up. Swiping across, going in these areas, and cleaning this guy up. Now, one thing that you have to remember is, let's say I made that mistake up here. And I wanted to remove that gold line. So I need to remember that I did that, because what's happening is any glass that you grind or engrave into, it takes the enamel immediately. So certainly if you guys wanted to do signatures and sign your work, you can also fill that with an enamel. Hint, hint, just swipe your finger across with some color. But there is a little mark right there, and that is where I actually removed that gold line. So now that's actually, I didn't want that to be part of the design, but now it's actually filled with color because it's going to grab it because it was so thin. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of water right there and just clean that up. A Q-tip would work too, because I want that to be black glass when we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cleaning this up. And it is okay to just, put a little dab of water, and I mean dab, just to get in these small areas. You can see they clean up really nicely. Just go ahead and move your finger to a cleaner part of the cotton. There we go. Now we are all set. And go between those areas. Looking good. Okay, so we can fire this. Another thing you can do with this too is, if you want to make these plates, these could be tack fuse elements on anything that you have, but that is the dry application. Now let me show you the wet, and then we'll get to our projects. What we need to do now is mix the enamels if you'd like to use the wet method. So what's very important here is the consistency. Now, if you've seen other videos from me with Easy Fire enamels, such as the simple screen video where we're screen printing, I ask you guys to go pretty thick. It's like fudge. It's pretty thick. Now, for this, we actually want to be very thin. We want the enamel to flow into the grooves. So you can see it's just falling right off that popsicle stick. Really just dripping right off there, and that's what we want. Dripping right off. Okay, so you're gonna have to, if you've done the simple screens technique, you would actually thin out your enamel with more medium. So this turquoise is almost there, but see how it's taking a long time to kind of fall off the stick? It's too much and it won't flow, and you're gonna have a big mess on your hands. So thinner consistency. So it comes right off the stick. So it flows nicely. It's kind of like, when you're screen printing, I told you guys cold syrup, but you know how when you warm up syrup in the microwave and it's much thinner, it would be like that, okay? So what you want to do is put your mask on. You've got your gloves on, because if you get the wet enamel on your clothes, it will stain, okay? Just like home paint, it will stain your clothes, and your hands will have it for about 12 hours. After 3 or 4 washings, you'll get it out. So let's go ahead and just mix one of those real quick. So go ahead and put your mask on. Let's mix this grass green here, okay? So what I do is, this is the silk screen medium by FuseMaster, same company that makes the Easy Fire enamels. And to just control it, because the top doesn't come on, the bottle does not come on with a little like a squeeze top, I like to use a little pipette and I just put some in the enamel. Now I can't give you an exact measurement, guys. You're gonna have to go by consistency because I mix what I need with my enamels. I do so much with enamels at this point in my life that I do some for screen printing, which is my absolute favorite thing to do. And you know, I do some for this. So there are two different consistencies. So I just mix what I need. And so I don't know how much enamel you're starting with. So your mask is on right now and you're mixing. And all I'm going to do is just keep on adding the medium. And all I'm going to do is keep on adding the medium until it gets thin enough. Now your first instinct is to just douse it with a bunch of medium. But you really got to mix it in there to know. So before you go and get more medium, you know, really kind of just keep on mixing and be sure that it's all mixed up. We want all the dry enamel to be completely mixed. No lumps, no bumps, lumps and bumps in here. So I can see that the silica smoke in the air. So make sure you're wearing your mask. Okay, I think we're ready to go. So I'll just do a couple colors. This is basically painting in the lines. It's pretty self-explanatory. So I've got my grass green there, which I love. I've got my dark red here, which is my favorite red. Let's go ahead and check that. Now I've mixed this. This is from a few days ago. Yep, nice and runny. A few days ago. And you can go ahead and date the jar. Make sure you date the top of your jar, and it's going to be good for 30 days. And I honestly, we've added more medium and gone a little longer. So, you know, just be aware that if you mix the enamel, you want to make sure and go ahead and get ready to use it within the next month or so. Okay, this is pretty simple, guys. I'm basically going to dip my enamel, and it's okay to remove your mask now. I'm going to dip my skewer into my enamel, and I'm just going to color in the areas. So let's do this green right here. I form a drop. I kind of let the first one fall off so I have control. And then I just go ahead and put it in the area, and I just paint with the skewer. Now, the advantages to the wet are that you can control the color fields. Absolutely. I could make every single petal a different color if I want, if I had all my enamels pre-mixed, which I highly recommend doing. And I'm just coloring in and letting it, I'm basically pushing it. I'm pushing it into the grooves, kind of pushing and pulling it. It's much more controlled and the coverage is better. You won't see a lot of sketchy lines, if any, with this. You're going to see a true cloisonné, if you like to say that. So if you're not one for the sketchy lines, this is the way to go. But what you have to remember, everybody, is that this is going to take some more time. So your time is money if you're a seller. If you're not a seller, this is just what look you prefer. So you have to factor that in, guys. So if I want to change colors, I can clean the skewer, but most likely I would just get another skewer. It just make sure there's no contamination with the two enamels. I think I did that backwards. I'm making the stems red because I can do whatever I want. Now you've got to be careful with your control. Watch your dripping. You don't want it to drip in other places. This glass that's engraved is susceptible to taking the enamels quite nicely. So if you have a drop of red right here, you know, it's going to be hard. It's going to stain that. But it's pretty easy. Just go on and go through. Again, what look do you like? I don't know, but I'm going to continue to do this. It's probably going to take me, I would say a good 20 minutes from now. And that's it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this design right here and see what this looks like when with the wet. And so I'll also show you the photos again, and then I will indicate on there, I am indicating on there which method was used. So I just made a big blob right there because I was talking and not paying attention. So now we're going to have to clean that up. And that is a little bit of a pain with the wet. So I'm going to kind of just soak it up, pull it back. You can use your finger, whatever, but see, now I'm going to have to go in and recolor that. So be careful, pay attention. I almost got it, but it's just a pain to do. Okay, so that is wet application. And make sure when you clean up, you're going to throw all this stuff away right here. Seal the cap on your enamels, put the date that you mix them, wash your hands with soap and water, throw the gloves in the garbage. Now that you've seen the dry and wet application, you can decide which is better for you. And we'll show you some work again and then indicate that on there. And so let's go ahead and dive into a couple of projects. Let's do a simple jewelry project. For those of you who do not have grinders, saws, that type of thing, this is a really, really simple way to get quick and easy jewelry projects. So I'll show you this one. This is a tack fuse, very simple, very basic, and then I'll show you one just a little bit more advanced. So as you can see, these are tack fuse pieces. This one right here is the waves pattern. These are 3x3 inch 18 karat gold transfer pattern sheets. You can certainly use it as a square on a piece of your fused glass work, or you can cut them up and put them into jewelry. So what I've done here is I've just cut a 2 and a quarter inch high by 1 1/4 inch wide piece of black iridized glass. And then I have a piece that is smaller around by 1/4 inch, and that's going to be my inlay, my inset piece, okay? So I've got that, and that is 1 inch by 2 inch, and that's just black. So I'm going to do this all in one shebang. I'm going to tack fuse the jewelry piece and fire the gold on at the same exact time. Now that schedule is in your PDF. This took some experimentation, guys, so although this isn't rocket science here, what I'm doing, this is, we've worked that part out for you. So we're going to tack fuse the two pieces together and actually fire this gold on at the same time to save us a firing. So I'm just going to go ahead, and the iridized is my background. Find a portion of the wave that I like. And I actually like a little border on top of mine. So I'm going to grab the edge right here and save a little bit more of the transfer. Go ahead and use a pen or a pencil to mark it out. That will burn off if it's on your transfer. And then we're going to cut inside the line. And then we're going to soak it. Now, I have to tell you, I do think that these look pretty cool without even engraving and enameling. You can see they're kind of cool just looking like that. So that just might be a design for you. So we're going to soak this until it easily comes off the back of the paper and we don't have to force it off. That's very important. So this is coming off very easily, so we're just going to go ahead and apply, take that edge, put it right on the glass. Now, when you apply these, I will tell you that they are very hard to see on dark colored glass. So you've got to make sure that you use this backing as a guide. Cut your precise shape, and then so the transfer fits your shape exactly. Okay, go ahead and throw that out. And I'm going to blot. Smooth the bubbles out, and then we're going to let this dry for about 6 hours before we put it in the kiln. Now, we're trying to kill two birds with one stone, so we're going to tack fuse this at the same time. This kind of jewelry does not require any tack fuse jewelry does not require any cold working. So this is something really quick that you can offer for your customers, and something very unique. So the point of this is, it is quite it's on the harder scale level. I'll say intermediate level as far as skill level to engrave into the jewelry ones, because these are smaller bits of areas. The larger the design, the larger the plate, the larger the gold transfer, the easier it is to engrave. But this is tiny, so you're going to use the tiniest bits in your ball bit engraving set. So I'm going to use Bullseye blue gel and just center it right there. I love the blue gel. It's fantastic. I use it for all my adhesive needs with glass. Okay, and I've already got the transfer on there. I let this dry 6 hours, I pop it in, and here's the result of that. So as you can see, this is really stuck together. These are not sharp edges. It's just a perfect schedule for that. And you guys can leave this as is, but that's not what the video is about. It's about enameling. So what we would do is go ahead and engrave. Now, you don't have to engrave every single little line. I'm not going to engrave again. Again, it would just take too much time. So if you need help with the engraving, go back to the engraving chapter and work on your technique. Remember, very, very comfortable. You should be comfortable, relaxed, and should not be causing any pain or discomfort to your arm whatsoever. And relax the grip. Just guide it. Let the Dremel and the diamond burr bit do the work for you. You're going to need some tiny ones to get through here. You can certainly just go through 1 or 2. It's all about what you want to do. It does not have to be entirely covered. But if you are a seller, it is about your time. So here is this piece with the dry method. And then here's another piece with the wet method. You can see that this mosaic piece, you can really pick the colors where you want them in the color field, and looks very neat. Where the dry method is just a little more haphazard, but depends on what you like. So let's go ahead and move on to a poppy pendant, and that's just a little bit more advanced using a ring saw. If you guys have a ring saw, then you can go ahead and do this next one. Okay, let's move to a little bit more advanced. If you have a jewelry saw or a ring saw, you can certainly make patties of these and then cut them up. It's a quick way to do it, but you can also get custom shapes. My absolute favorite shape is the pods. It looks like a surfboard. It's my go-to jewelry shape. I love it. It complements a woman's figure. I just love the piece. I love how it hangs on the neck. And I just about do everything in the pod shape. So what you could do is just make a blank. Now, what I want you guys to remember is your glass does not have to be black. We want it to be a darker color to show the gold transfer quite well, but even in this piece right here, I've just used a red base, and I'll probably engrave and outline this with a darker red, and then I can have that outline in the poppy. So you do not have to use the black glass. You could always use another color, but just to point that out to you. So what I did here is I pre-fused a full fuse schedule. This is a piece of Tecta on the bottom, and then it is Bullseye black glass number 0100 on top. This is a 3x3 because that is the size of a pattern sheet. I full fused these. I went up very quickly at 600 degrees. Short annealing, that schedule will also be in your PDF. So once that's done, I went ahead and applied the transfer, just like I've shown you a couple times already. So I took the poppy sheet, I applied the transfer, and then I fired that on. So that's firing number 2. So I fired that on at 1325 degrees for 10 minutes. Now this gold will take it, a 30-40 degree fluctuation, so that will cover all of your kilns. Now, this is another firing. You can't put that transfer on here and then full fuse at the same time. We've already tried that. The glass moves when it's in a liquid state and it cracks up the gold. Now, that might not bother you, so it's probably worth giving it a shot just to snip off a little piece and to see if you like the look, because then you can knock out one of the firings. But I like mine to be really smooth. So then I go ahead and I fire that on, and you see that gorgeous, gorgeous gold metallic. I then take my pod shape and I go ahead with my white paint deco marker, and I kind of go around and see where I want to do the pendant. So that looks like a good one right there. I want to get the most out of this tile, so I'm going to go ahead and so on and so forth, and then I'm going to cut all of my pieces out. Now I'm going to wait about 10 minutes. That one looks good right there. There's a tiny one right there. I'm going to wait about 10 minutes before I hit the saw, because I want that marker to dry on the piece. So I'm just kind of going around like this, and I'm going to go take it to the saw and cut the piece out, and I'm going to use the dry method for that, so I'll show you that real quick. So I've cold worked my piece, and I've also went ahead and engraved my piece. The only thing that I really engraved here is the outline of the poppy, and then just a little bit in the center, and then the stems. That's it. It's very minuscule. So that took me probably about 4 minutes, okay? So again, guys, you don't have to do a big elaborate thing with this. It could be, you know, engraving just a little bit and just accenting your pieces and then filling the enamel in. So I'm going to go ahead, make sure you put your mask on because you're going to do the dry method. And I'm going to take a very, very, very small amount, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on each flower. I'm going to start with that because I think that that's going to float over down here. And I'm just going to glide across the piece very nicely. Look how easy that is. And I've even got, so the good thing, I've even got some extras. The good thing with working with just one color of enamel is you can reclaim the enamel. So work on a piece of typing paper, and then you can just swipe off and then just dump the enamel right back in from the typing paper. So that was very quick. This is a very, very, very quick piece. And of course, guys, if you want to just use one color enamel, the process will go even quicker with the dry method. I wouldn't even attempt to do the wet method because why would you? But again, you get that little sketchy look. So that looks really nice. We're going to go ahead. I've got cold working done here, so I'm going to need to fire polish it, which means shine it back up. I'm going to fire polish and fire the enamel at the same exact time. I will put that in your PDF. There'll be lots of stuff in there for you. I'm all about saving you guys firings and saving time. So let's go ahead and take a look at this piece, see how it looks fired. Whoa, what a beauty. I call it right now, that's one of your best sellers in the booth. And why do you have to stop at red poppies? You can do blue poppies, you can do purple poppies, you can do whatever poppies you want in Poppy Land and make your glass whatever color you want. Let's get on to a really nice, easy, and quick plate. Okay, let's move on to a very quick and easy tutorial. I love it. It's just super whimsical, and spring is coming up and it gives you that spring feeling. Very eclectic looking piece. And I also want to show you how the gold transfer looks on a lighter opal. I'm going to use tints for this, Bullseye Tints. It's my favorite glass that they make. It's a very watered down color. I love it, especially on top of white. And like a warm white, a cream. The tints won't work on anything dark, but boy, do they just make a beautiful color when they're put on top of those opalescent colors. So right here I have an 8x8 of warm white, and I'd like to use the rolled edges for this. So this is just a rolled edge that I have. It's a couple inches wide. It can be whatever size you guys want, but put the rolled edge on the inside, okay? Then I take my tint and I put it over. This is grass green tint. We carry a lot of tints. I love tints. They're just amazing. Look at that nice soft color. This is great for a spring line for you guys. One piece does not make an impact in your art show booth or on your internet or on your Etsy store. Not one. 10, 8 to 10. Grouping a series makes an impact for people. That's what makes them come by. That's what makes them stop and look in your internet store. If you know a lot of techniques, that's great, but you've got to be able to make series. You know, if there's too much on the table, you know what I'm saying? There's too much on the table. People walk by, they don't know where to look. They're looking all over, blah, 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 okay? You got to group it. It's a series. This is your 2019 Eclectic Garden Series. Go ahead and use the name. Okay, I just made that up. I don't know, you know, but so, and then what you do is you make a series for this, guys. Okay, so now I get the most out of my full sheet of glass. I've got a 34 by 17.5 inch sheet of glass. So I'm going to get the most pieces out of that. I don't base my project, I don't make the size of my project first if I'm a seller. I don't do that, okay? I look at the sheet of glass and go, okay, how many 8x8s can I get out of there? How many 6x6s? It's 15. 15 6x6s you can get out of a full sheet of glass. Then I make my project. That's how you maximize your money. You don't buy a 10x10 and then make a 6x6 project and then you've got all that waste that you could go into your scrap pile. Start buying half sheets. Get 4 10x10s out of there and 2 5x10s out of there, and then you make the size of your project using every bit of your material. That is the very first piece of advice I can give you to keep those costs down, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and put this grass green tint on top, okay? And I let it, I'm going to even, you know, kind of push it so it's even, and the rolled edge is very wonky, right? So there's going to be areas that stick out further than the rest, and I want that little river so to speak, right here. So I'm going to go ahead and line that up. I'm going to mark this with a Sharpie right here, right to the edge of my base glass of the 8x8. I'm going to go ahead and cut this really quick on a strip cutter and then go ahead and come back and show you how to fill that crack. Okay, so I've got my piece cut, and I definitely want to go ahead and put some of that gel on here. Make sure it's straight and flush with the edge. Okay, and then you have that gap right here, okay? This is really simple, and this isn't anything, you know, extraordinary, but I don't want you to take a long time to make these bases if you're planning to engrave. So I'm going to go ahead and just paint the edges right here. I'm painting the edge of the rolled edge and the edge of my grass green tint, okay? I'm using coarse frit with this, and I'm going to use 1842, which is Neo Lavender tint, 1408 light aquamarine, and then I have 1807, which is grass green tint, okay? So I've actually got, this is coarse, and then the grass green tint is medium. All I'm gonna do is, I'm planning to put that gold transfer right here, and that is the garden design. So all I'm going to do is kind of fill the gap here with these colors. Kind of let it just fall, you know, into the grass green tint sheet glass. This is very quick. This is kind of my base, and I'm going to let a couple float up here, like right around the top. You can see I've done that here on the finish plate. Fill up that gap, and we're going to have that organic. Mix it. Careful with your reactive glasses. You want to use glasses that are not reactive with this, unless you want that. I mean, you can certainly do that, but not with this little garden look. And I'm keeping the frit about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge so I don't get a wonky edge. I just want this to come out perfect, and I don't want to do any cold working at all. That's it. How about that? Okay. So find a way to make some interesting bases, and then go ahead and give it an engraving. The engraving is what is important on this piece. You know, I don't want to do a lot of fancy dancer stuff over here. I did a couple pieces with big mouth paints, and those are pretty cool. That was very, very quick. There's a free video on that as well. So that's about the extent I would go with these engraved pieces. You see, for example, going back to the poppy plate, that's just a piece of black glass over Tecta, and the poppy garden is what's really important, and that just says enough. So I'm going to go ahead and full fuse this. That'll be in your PDF, and I'll show you the results of that. So here's the result of that fuse. I've got a nice organic edge right here. My frit's kind of just floating right over here. Look how nice and beautiful that color is. Really try to, guys, if you're going to play with those tints, this is the one to do it with. So now that this is fused, I'm going to go ahead and take my garden gold transfer, and I'm going to apply it to the plate, and then I'm going to fire that on. That absolutely has to be fired on before you engrave it, for obvious reasons, or you would have a big mess, okay? So fire that on. Go ahead and engrave, and if you want to slump it into a bullseye square slumper, as we did here, I'll give you a schedule that you can actually fire the enamel and slump at the same exact time. So we'll go ahead and give you that schedule. That'll be in your PDF. And here is the result of the finished piece. And this was using the wet method. Not only was it using the wet method, Dana Logan actually did this piece. She used a very, very, very tiny brush and really got into it and was blending some colors. This brush is the quadruple zero size, really, really tiny. I know that a lot of the glass painters like to use Mark Hufford, and he's the first one that comes to mind, like to use these brushes for glass painting. So, you know, you can really get into this, guys. You can really go ahead and paint with the enamel in that grooved area. What's important to me is, if I was a seller, you know, if I was going back to my old days of doing this, I would want the customer to know the amount of work I did with the engraving. So I would really let some of that glass show through, and I like that sketchy look. You really want to be able to feel it and, you know, see that it has a nice engraving in there, because that is where the work comes from. All right, I know what you guys are waiting for. You're waiting for the wine bottle holder, so let's go ahead and get to that. I am quickly going to do, I've been asked to do a pricing discussion. I'm going to quickly do that and show you my formula, and then we will get to the wine bottle. If none of that interests you, then go ahead and skip on ahead. So many of you ask me about pricing at your art shows and online, and a lot of times I'm hearing things like, oh, I can't get that in my town. I live in a small town. I can't get that price here. I really think that a formula would help you guys. What you really need to think about is if you can't get that in your town, then you've got to stop doing so much work on your glass art pieces and make artwork that's unique, that will fall into the groove of your town and getting the money that you can. So I think you'd be surprised at my formula, which I'll go over with you in just a minute. But one of the big things is, like I discussed, is using your materials wisely. So you don't want to buy a 10 by 10 of bullseye glass and then use 6-inch and make 6-inch plates out of it. You'd make 5-inch, so you get 4 out of it. Start buying larger sheets of glass, half sheets, and getting the most that you can out of that. Start figuring that out first. So I think that a lot of people don't do that, and then what happens is they're finding themselves in a never-ending pit of material cost. That's the first thing. Secondly, you have to judge what your time is worth. Okay, that's a hard thing to do. We take, self-analysis, and we look at ourselves as artists and we say, how much am I worth? That's a hard question. So basically what I did was, when I first started being an artist, I took the minimum wage for the state that I was in. That a lot of times that determines the cost of living, or rather the minimum wage is based on the cost of living. So if you're in Norway, the minimum wage is $21 an hour, and that's fantastic. So you would be a very well-off artist. But here in Florida, it's $8.26. So if you're really getting into this, what I did first off is I had started at $8.26 and I times it by 3. So that would be $24.78. So that would be my hourly wage. Now I'll give you the rest of my formula right now. So we're going to go ahead and look at these boring numbers. You're not going to look at me anymore, okay? So we're going to do that real quick. But one thing is you have to decide how much you're worth. And so this will get you started. And then after a year or so, you start giving yourself raises, just like a business. This is exactly what I did. Raises 5 to 10%. Continue your education and continue adding to your skill set. You'll be surprised. You'll look at your work from point A to point B, and each year you reassess your work. Am I better at this? Do I know more? Make a piece of glass in 2019 and make that same piece of glass in 2020. See how you've evolved. Constant education is very, very important, guys. If you want to make a business out of this, you need to know many things. This is what I did. Feed myself with education, and now I'm feeding it to you, and it worked. So I'm living proof that it worked. So you guys can do the same thing. Add to your skill set, get better at your skill set. If you're engraving now in 2019 and you continue to engrave, this is a line that's doing well for you, in 2020 your time should be cut in half to make a piece. Give yourself a raise. 10%. Okay, so that's $2.40 an hour I get, and then your new formula is based off of that. I also apply what's called a CAF tax to my art, and that's C-A-F, CAF tax, and that's 20%. What that means is the cool art factor. So if I've got something that I know that nobody else has, for example, this wine bottle holder, I have yet to see a floating bottle in a fused glass wine holder. I haven't seen it yet. I'm not saying it's not out there. I am saying it's awesome, but I'm saying that I've never ever seen it yet. So to me, that gets a CAF tax. So whatever my price is, if I was doing $60 for this, I would add a CAF tax. That's a cool art factor tax. No, it's not a real thing. I made it up, but this is what I did. In other words, I don't see it out there. It's original and unique. So I'm going to add a CAF tax of 20% to my price. And I'm going to raise that thing $12 because that's originality, and I'm the only one that's out there selling it. So if you guys are doing shows, you should be walking around your shows and seeing what everybody has. I never priced my items before a show. The standard stuff I did, but the unique stuff I didn't. I would go out there, look at what people have, come right back in, go an hour early just to do that. Come right back in, give yourself the CAF tax, okay? So let me go ahead and break down my formula, and I hope that it helps some of you. And I think that if you had something to go on, maybe it would, brighten your spirits a little more. And, you want to make a profit. It's not a business if it's not a profit. And so let me share my formula with you. Okay, hi everybody. Here's me. We're going to use a headshot of me while I'm talking. Before we look at the cost analysis sheets, and also you have to look at boring numbers while I break it down. So here's me, here's my face, and you know what? This is my skinny picture, so we're going to go with this. Okay, first I'll do the retail, and then I will do wholesale. So if you are a retail seller but do not have a business, I'm going to give you my formula, and then I will do the wholesale. Now, when I'm going to do wholesale, I expect that you are selling to galleries and you are selling in bulk. Galleries, stores, things like that, because I know there's some of you out there, and I do have a different formula for that, and I did both, and I did them for a very, very long time before I even got into the distribution and supply and studio end of it. So first, let's take a look at this cost analysis sheet. The first column that we have here is our hourly wage. So when I just started out, took the minimum wage where I lived and times that by 3. So that's what you guys would do. If you are selling in a different state, going somewhere else to sell for a show or what have you, find out the hourly wage in that state and multiply that by 3. The second column here is your supply cost. The third column is the subtotal of the hourly wage and the supply cost. The fourth column is a CAF tax. That's CAF, CAF tax. That is the cool art factor. That is something that I did. I didn't get that from anywhere except my brain. And I added 20% to items that were very unique. So search around on the internet if you've got a new item or even the items that you have now, search around and see what's out there. When I used to do shows, I would price the standard items, but then I would always go very early and walk around and see if people had the same thing that I did. And if they didn't, I would add the CAF tax to it because I knew that I had a unique item that you could only get from me. The next column is the overhead column, and that is 10%. So this includes your electricity, costs that you typically wouldn't add in, adhesives, kiln time, things like that, just the cost of doing business. So I just want to point out that the CAF tax, I take that 20% and add it to the subtotal of the hourly wage and the supply cost. I don't add the CAF tax onto the overhead. The next column you have is the total, which is the subtotal plus the CAF tax plus the overhead, and that would be your retail price. I also have a date created column, and then I also have a date sold column. Now, when I was doing this and following this formula, I will tell you that if my products did not sell in 90 to 120 days, that's 3 to 4 months, you guys have to determine what your cutoff point is. Those items would go on sale. Stale inventory does nothing for anybody. Don't be prideful about it. Put them on sale. If they're not selling, it's wasted money that you've spent and you don't receive that money back. Put those items on sales. Keep good track of this and keep good records, and this will create a system for you that will work. One piece of advice I can give you is you never lower your wage. Your hourly wage is your wage. That's it. You do not do that. Find a way to get your supply costs down. So buying wholesale, obviously, getting a tax number, which usually is free in most states or a very minimal cost of $50, I think. That will help you buy wholesale. If you're unable to buy wholesale or you don't want to deal with the whole tax situation, buy larger quantities. For example, instead of buying 5 by 10 or 10 by 10 pieces of glass, buy half sheets or full sheets. This will bring your cost down. Maximize the most of your materials. If you have a 34 by 17 inch sheet, think about how many 6 by 6 plates you could get for engraving plates. That would be 15. You wouldn't make 8 by 8 because you would have a lot of waste on the sheet. So that would be one way to figure that out. Okay, so let's take this piece for example. This is a 6 by 6 inch piece that was engraved, and let's use the cost analysis sheet to work the formula. So I'm going to assume that it took me 30 minutes. That's about what it took. It took me 30 minutes to make this piece. This is a piece of Tecta with black glass on top, full fused, which literally took 2 minutes to put together. And then it took me about 30 minutes to engrave. So let's say 30 minutes for this piece. I suspect it would probably take you a little longer to start, but again, this is exactly where the time factor comes in that I was talking about if you're a seller. So based on those numbers, if I'm making the minimum wage times 3, that is $24.78. But it only took me 30 minutes to make the piece. So I'm actually only going to pay myself $12.39, half the amount of that wage. $9.17 go towards the supplies. That subtotal is $21.56. Next is the calf tax. I'm definitely taking the calf tax on this because I know there's nothing like this out there, and that total is $4.31. Then you have your overhead. Remember, my overhead is 10% of my subtotal, which is $2.16. Your total comes to $28. So if Tanya Veit was making these pieces, I'd make them pretty quickly, and I should be selling them retail for $28. Now that's if I was out of the gate. What you really have to assess is your hourly wage. If you're just starting out, I think 3 times time minimum wage is a good hourly wage. Now, currently, my hourly wage is about $60 an hour as an artist. This is what I have determined. So you can play with that number a little bit. The higher that your wage goes up, the higher that your end result in the price is going to be. So you can plug that number in. I just gave you a starting point. Now, for that same plate, I'm going to assume that you are just beginning. So let's say it takes you an hour to make that piece. So now we're at a full $24.78 based on the Florida minimum wage. It takes us a full hour, so $24.78. Supply number the same, $9.17. Subtotal $33.95. 10% overhead, and then my calf tax. So the calf tax number is going to go up also based on the fact that it took you more time to make the piece. So now this 6-inch plate is $44.14 to sell if it took you an hour to make the piece. So I'm sure you can understand that bringing your time down, if you can't get $44 in the area that you're selling, you've got to find a way to bring your time down. So that wouldn't be the piece that you would make in your area. So based on that information, I'll go back to what I hear on Facebook and emails as I can't get that in my town. But I'm really wondering how many are really breaking down the costs. So if that 6-inch plate took you an hour to make and the cost analysis sheet says you should be charging $44.14, this includes the overhead and calf tax, then guess what, guys? You should not be selling that piece in that town. Either go to a different town, sell in a different town, or make something different. So if you truly believe, I'd like you guys to try the cost analysis first before you say you can't get the price in your town. But if you truly believe that you can't get the money where the art show that you are selling at in your town, then you need to switch up the technique. You have to make work that adapts to the economy that you're in. I would suspect that a lot of you really have no idea what price you can get in your town because a lot of test marketing would have to be done with that. But let's just say that you think that you can only get $30 for a piece. So you have to bring the work down. You have to bring the time down. So for example, knowing that your wage is $25 an hour and you need to take only 30 minutes to make a piece, what techniques can you do in 30 minutes just to get the price down? So something that has no cold working, maybe not very complicated engravings. You need a low cost of supplies. You can do the big mouth paint technique, the etching sticker technique, that's free. Those are very quick, very cheap supplies. You really have to analyze where you're at and what techniques you're doing if you're trying to make a business out of this. The bottom line is how much are you going to pay yourself an hour? That's really what it comes down to. Make a list of every technique that you can do and use the cost analysis sheet and break it down and adjust your numbers and make it work. So list every technique, do the cost analysis on every single one. Then from those sheets, you can decide what you can sell at shows, what you can sell to galleries, what you can sell to the public. I'm sure that you would find it very fascinating, seeing actually what it costs to make your pieces. And again, time is everything. So find ways to streamline pieces. If you're taking 6 hours to make a piece and you're being fussy over every single little detail, you are definitely not making your profit back on that, and you're actually going to go into the hole. So one of the things that I used to do when I was doing a lot of shows is I would have 3 price points. I would have 50% of my items being on the lower end when I started, and then 35% being middle range, and then 15% being high range price items. If you find that all the highs are selling, then you would adjust those numbers and maybe go 50% middle and then 50% high. So that would hopefully help you out a little bit. Wholesaling your work. Now let's talk about wholesalers. Now, I'm not talking about if you're a wholesaler and you're buying supplies at a cheaper rate. If you're a wholesaler and you're buying supplies at a wholesale rate and you're selling to the public, you're going to make more money based on the cost analysis sheet that you will be using. So this would be if you are selling your work wholesale to galleries, stores, sales agents, wholesale shows, that kind of thing. Otherwise, you wholesalers, if you're just selling directly to the public, you're going to use the same sheet and you're going to make more money because you are able to buy the material at a lower cost. So let's just say this is for wholesaling your work to shops and galleries. This is the sheet that I use for that. It's kind of the same formula, but I do have a couple different things. Number one, I do not apply a CAF tax to work that I'm selling to galleries and wholesale. That's really their pricing to do. If they think your work is unique, they're going to price your work a little higher. One of the things I'm seeing or I'm hearing by talking with my students about wholesaling is they're not selling in bulk. For example, if you have a gallery that's wanting to buy some pieces, stop selling 3 pieces at a time. Wholesalers should expect to buy bulk. The game has changed, and gallery owners need to know that that they're supposed to be buying in bulk. So you can tell them that the minimum order is half a dozen or a dozen. It doesn't have to be the same exact design, but it should be generally the same technique. So 6-inch engraved plates can have different designs, but it's the same technique. Make them buy in bulk. If they are insecure and not wanting to buy bulk, that's because if they're hesitant, that's a better word I should use, hesitant to buy in bulk. That tells me as an artist that they're insecure about selling my work, and they don't think it's actually going to sell, or they don't want to do the work, or they don't have the means to sell that amount of product for you. That's not the gallery for you guys. True wholesale, you should be finding a place that's willing to buy your minimums, half a dozen or a dozen, and then also the reorder is the most important thing. Selling the first order is exciting, but it's the reorder to me that was always much more exciting. And find a gallery that has the confidence to sell your work. Now, these days it's a little different. You used to keystone it. You would if you had a plate that was $60 and then you wanted to sell it to a gallery, they would expect 50% off at $30. It's really not that way anymore. It's more like 40% in your favor. But work out your retail price first, wholesalers. Work out your retail price first and take the 40% off. So what I do is to get to that retail price is I use the cost analysis sheet again. So let's break down the wholesale costs. I think you'll find this very interesting. If you're selling bulk, let's take whole numbers just to make this easier for us. So let's say that my wage is $25 an hour, and my supply costs as a wholesaler to make this plate are $5. That total is $30. I still do a 10% overhead. That's absolute must. So $30 plus $3 is $33. For wholesaling, I would apply 1.5%. I always times 1.5% because in the end, you're reducing your costs so much for the discount. You're hoping to make that up in bulk sales, but this is what I've always done. I've times it times 1.5. That number would be $49.50. This is what your retail number would be, but you're not selling retail, but this is the retail number you base your percentage off of, the discount that you're giving the gallery. So your retail price would be $49.50 per se, and then you would take 40% off of that, and that leaves you with $29.70. So this is what your wholesale cost of this plate would be, $29.70. Now, if you look at that number, it will match up just about, it'll be off just by a slight amount of your hourly wage and your supplies. You're not sacrificing any of your hourly wage with wholesale, and you're still getting your supply money back. So look, it works. $5, $25 equals $30, plus your overhead is $33. Times that by 1.5%. That is your imaginary retail number, which is $49.50. And then you're giving the gallery 40% off. Your wholesale price is $29.70 for that plate. This is the formula that I've always used with jewelry, with work. I don't sell anymore, but that's the way that it is. So if you even had something lower than that, if it would work. If you had something higher than that, would work. But this is my formula. Now, it doesn't mean to say that it's going to work for you, but I think it would get you guys off on a right start. This is what I use, and I always stuck with it. Every year, I reassessed myself and gave myself a 10% raise on the wage factor. So you can see the wage is a big number, and it really does come down to your time. Find pieces that are unique, that don't take a lot of time, especially if you're wholesaling. So I will upload the retail and the wholesale cost analysis sheets for you guys, and you can use them if you wish. The last thing I'm going to say about this, everybody, let me just give you a couple other words of advice. When you have a engraved plate, such as you've been looking at this whole time, and you have it out on your table at a show, or you're selling it on Etsy, or you're selling it on your website, or you're selling it on Facebook, please don't just put fused glass plate. Okay, that's great. And you know what? People might see value in that, they might not. But what they may see value in more is if you really let people know the work that you did. People that are buy art are interested in art, and they want to know what you did. I would display and market this place as, you know, a fused glass art tray with 18 karat gold that has been hand engraved with, and then with enamel, something like that. Let them know the work that you've done, and let them know the material. This is an 18 karat gold transfer. It has been hand engraved. It has enamel in it. I mean, these are very strong selling points. Suddenly, the fused glass plate that you had on your table that you might have put for $25, well, you can mark it up to 40 because people know that you hand engraved that. Yes, I did. They appreciate art and appreciate the work that you do. So really set up a nice display and really tell the customers, you know, what you've done and the artwork that you've done, and people will appreciate that and let you know that by purchasing your art. And the last thing I want to say is, I'm a really big advocate of this. Everybody, please stop undercutting each other in glass art. I've seen pendants on Etsy for $12. It makes my skin crawl, okay? Stop undercutting each other. If people would just stay in the general range, you are devaluing the art. You're devaluing other people's artwork when you are continually undercutting and playing the Amazon game. This is supposed to be art, everybody. If you're a seller, you should be appreciated. Nothing is more upsetting than to see beautiful work for $15 a plate on Etsy because it's the lowest bid wins. I'm really, really trying to talk to everybody into raising their prices, using a steady formula, and raising the value of art, raising the value of your product, and everyone basically making more money on the art that you've done. Okay, everybody, let's get back to it, and let's do the wine holder. Now that you've had that talk, I'm sure that you'll see differently about this wine holder and what you could sell them for. Well, I know why most of you are here. You want my secret to the floating wine bottle holder. I said this once, I'm saying it again. This was a doozy for Dana and I work out. We put it down several times. We did not want the bottle to sit like this because that's too easy. You know, and that's okay. But look how cool that is. Nice and floating and rocking so beautifully. Okay, so we thought, let's put the engraving in there and let's combine the wine thing. Let's figure this out. We put it away for like a year because we just couldn't, you know, get it. We didn't try that hard, but we kind of tried hard. And now it's awesome. So now I've got my engravings in the bottle. You can see there's a couple here that are getting ready to go get slumped. And then we've got some right here that have been slumped that need holes in them. It is very important that you follow the firing schedule along with the instructions and the exact measurements that we use. This is what we have found to be successful. If you find something else that's successful, awesome, that's great. But this is what's successful for us. So first of all, we had to fuse, full fuse. We took a piece of 11-inch by 3.5-inch black glass. First of all, I don't even need to tell you how awesome it is. Whether or not you guys engrave, you still can make a wine bottle holder. You could do reactive glass. You could paint on it. You could do anything. We could do wine bottle holders all over the darn place, okay? Got to have a 32mm drill bit. That's important also. And also the bullseye lamp bender mold, number 8725, I think. If I didn't get that right, they're going to bust me. I know it. But anyways, we got a piece of Tecta here and a piece of black bullseye glass. These measurements will be in your PDF. They are 11 inches long by 3.5 inches wide. So once we have that, we stick it in the kiln for a full fuse. and whatever that is in your kiln. For us, it's $14.90 for 10 minutes. Then this blank comes out. We apply the gold, 18 karat gold transfer, which I use the tree, one of my absolute favorites, and then we fire that on. So that is 2 firings. That's a quick firing, guys. This isn't anything major. And these are very skinny. So you're not doing 1 wine holder, you're doing as many as your kiln can handle. So again, putting these 2 pieces of glass together literally took me 2 minutes. That's not a big thing. Make a whole bunch of blanks, okay? As many as your kiln can fit. This is how you streamline this process. Then you're going to apply the 18 karat gold Cloisonné transfers to the end of your glass. Fire that on. Once that's fired on, then what are you doing? You are going to engrave, okay? Now, I did give you guys a schedule where you could engrave and slump into a bullseye square slumper at the same time. That's fantastic. This one, you can't. You guys could not think that something this awesome was going to be just 1 firing, did you? It's not. So with this case, which will be in your PDF as well if you can't recall, we are going to fire the enamel first. The reason being, when we slump this guy, we actually have to be very particular with the slump. And just when it hits the bender, we go ahead and stop it. The slump is very particular, and you are going to have to watch your kiln. This is an advanced project, but just imagine these all in your booth, guys. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine it for you guys. I'm so excited. All in your art booth, all on your websites. It's going to be so cool, okay? All right, so it's a very, very particular schedule. So this is done very, very low, very low. We've attempted this many times. It's at 1090 for 4 minutes. That's for black glass. Black glass is a very, very soft glass. It melts very quickly. It has a very low viscosity, which is the resistance to flow. So that's that for black glass. You guys will have to kind of watch it, okay? It's not enough temperature to actually fuse that enamel in there and slump at the same time. 1094 is not enough. It comes out very dull. The enamel has to go to at least 1240, 1250-ish for it to shine up. So it doesn't work, guys. So you got a full fuse slump. You got a full fuse firing with your blanks, 11 inches by 3.5 inches. And then you have to apply your gold transfer. That's firing number 2. Number 3 is engrave and fire the enamel on, 1250 for 10 minutes. And then number 4 is the slump. Okay? So that's the deal. We're going to take this down to the kiln room now, and I'm going to show you the correct way to get this slumped, because you actually have to slump this thing upside down, if you can believe it or not. And there's no marks. We've figured it out. It's perfect. Wow, you're going to love it. Everything's going to be beautiful. You're going to make a lot of money. Okay, here we are at the kiln getting ready to slump our wine bottle holder, the floating wine bottle holder. So this is a very specific setup. You want to use the Bullseye Lamp Bender Mold. The number is 8725. We've got plenty in stock for you guys. We bought all that Bullseye had at this time, so you might have to get it from us. And then what we do is we want some airflow underneath that mold. So we go ahead and raise the mold on some kiln posts. I've got one in the back, one in the front, back front, and then left side, right side. Now, this is going to seem crazy to you, but this is what works. We've done it many times, so trust, okay? You're going to take your engraved fire. This is fired. The enamel's fired, and it's going to go upside down, okay? That's how we got the backwards curve, upside down. Now, the trick to this is, so the front stays glossy and beautiful, is you want a piece of thin fire that goes over the mold, and then you're going to crease the edges, and then just tuck them under like that, okay, right underneath the post. So I'm going to crease that edge, crease that edge. Okay, now make sure that this piece is super duper clean. I can see fingerprints all over this thing right now. Black glass loves fingerprints, so I want to make sure and clean that really well. And then what you're going to do is center it. You can do 2 at a time on this mold, which is very, very nice. Okay, so go ahead and center that. I'm working from the side here, but stand in front of it and get it centered. And then what you're going to do is fire this to the schedule that's in your handout. Now, our schedule is 1090 degrees for 4 minutes. We had to watch that and make sure that happened. So you want it to, you don't want this to over melt. Again, black being a very soft glass with a low viscosity, I wanted to watch this. So you'll be surprised. Put a face shield on, put some gloves on, wear cotton clothing, and after 1,000 degrees, maybe 1,050, start looking at it and watching what it's doing. So try our schedule first. You can always re-slump it if it's not slumped enough, but again, 1090 to 4 minutes, and it's going to come out beautiful and glossy. The reason why the thin fire is there is so it doesn't pick up marks from the mold when it curves down. It works perfectly. The temperature is so low that it does not affect the underside of the glass. It's not going to come out matte or anything, and it's against the thin fire, and it works great. So let's go ahead and fire this up and get ready to drill it. All right, here we are, looking good. So actually, you know that I'm lying to you right now because the thin fire didn't turn to powder, but this is the curve. That's how it looks like, guys, right here, okay? And so this is a frog, the other one was a tree. But this thin fire will turn to powder, so you'll have to vacuum out your kiln afterwards. But that's it. Now I want to show you how to mark this out to go ahead and hit the drill press. Okay, now we got to measure this guy out. So we're going to clean it off. You can see it's still glossy and beautiful, so that works. I just went to, you can get this at any office supply store. It's a drafting template. Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Joann Fabrics have them. Amazon has them. It's just a circular drafting template, and it has all the sizes. So we're using a 32 millimeter drill bit. And it's actually absolutely precise. You can't use anything bigger. That is the size that works. We've tried them all. If the hole's too big, the bottle won't sit right. So we want to use a 32 millimeter hole. The first thing we want to do is get the center point on here. Okay, so this was 3.5 inches when we started, but has shrunk to 3 and a little bit over 5/8 or something like that. So the middle here, I want to mark the middle here. I'll put this in the PDF for you, but it's 1 and 11/16. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Right there. Oops, a little bit. Right there. Okay. Then what I want to do is, and I will absolutely make this very clear for you in your notes, I want to mark the side 2 inches down. So we're coming 2 inches. That's where the top of the hole is going to start. Okay. And again, I'm using the white Deco paint marker. All right. So just to make this easy for you until you've done this a couple times, make sure that you guys, I'm not so concerned with the center. I'm sure you guys can start eyeballing that, but make sure this is 2 inches down. I just put a line right here. And then I'm going to put it here. My hand's probably in the way. I'll try to do it on this side. And I make a T. So I've got the center point, which I'm a little off there, I can see because I smeared my mark. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Let's do this again. There we go. Okay. And now I have a T. So I know that when I take my template with a 32 millimeter hole, that starts at the beginning of that line. Can everyone see that? And I can see the middle. So I'm just going to mark that out, and then there is my reference point. Okay, so then when I go to the drill, I have it all worked out. Okay, this takes a second. It seems longer when I'm teaching it, but it will only take you about 30 seconds to do that. Let's go over to the drill press and let's drill this guy out. Okay, here we are at the drill press, everybody. This is the point in time you see there's 3 hands here now. I've got Dana holding this curve for me. You might be asking yourself, why wouldn't you just drill it when the piece was flat? We found that when we did that and then we slumped, the hole stretched. And that would make it too big for the bottle, or the bottle wouldn't fit at all. We want this to fit all wine bottles. So we've decided to do it this way. Enlist a partner. All they have to do is hold it. Dana's just steadily holding the curve up for me so I have this flat. You could do it yourself by holding down like this, but I would suggest that you really feel comfortable in what you're doing before you do something like that. I have a drill press video on YouTube that's pretty extensive, and it shows you what to do, and so you guys can review that, but we'll give the basics here. I'm going to wear some rubber bottom gloves that I get from Home Depot. They're about $6 a pair. It just makes me feel better, and so I won't be scared. And if it does pick it up, the piece, it could have a sharp edge on it and it could cut your finger. So I prefer to wear these. And the big thing with the drill press is you own it. It does not own you. So you cannot be scared of this thing. These drill presses are about $85. It's awesome. You can do holes in glass. You'll love it. All right, so Dana's holding that for me. We're right where we're supposed to be. And I'm going to turn the drill press on. Safety glasses on, everybody, and gloves. It's going to be hard to hear, but what I'm going to go do is go down, and then bring the drill press back up so I can let the water into the hole. I'm going to do this a few times. This cools the glass, helps cool the glass. I have 2 pieces of styrofoam underneath. The important thing is when you get through, you need to not be scared or freaked out when it goes through and get right back up and get the drill out of the glass. If it keeps on spinning, that's when the glass starts chipping on the back. We're going to smooth it out with a Dremel, but it prevents that. The styrofoam is a nice thing for it to hit rather than a piece of plywood because it's nice and soft and it'll give us less splintering of the glass on the other side. Okay, here we go. Got it? Ready? Okay, so go through next time. Okay, that was very effortless. You have to know when it's going to go through. It's 6 millimeter, a quarter of an inch thick. It becomes a feel, guys, and talk to your partner. You hear me say, Dana, you got that? Yes, you should be talking to your partner so there's no problems. As soon as it gets through, just be ready. Be familiar with your on-off button and click it off right away. So now we have the hole. So I'm going to go ahead and smooth that out with a Dremel. It's pretty awesome. Look at that. No splintering. Here we go. We had a successful drill out, and let me just tell you guys, if you're making a lot of these, I would not do 3/8 inch thick. Those are harder to drill, and you might get some splintering. It would be a real shame to break something after all this work. So I can tell you that soft and clear glass works really nice with drill press. It's really, really easy. I would stick with the 6 millimeter thickness, which is 2 layers of glass for the wine holder. This is a real nice cutout. There's a very tiny bit of chipping, but I want to go ahead and smooth that out. That's going to happen with every drill press cut that you do. And when your bit is done, you're going to get more splintering. So you're going to ask me how many. I would say probably, 30, 40 of these I would start thinking about changing. And then what we're going to do is switch to the big ball bit, the diamond ball bit that comes with your engraving set. And what we're going to do is just going to smooth this around on both sides. And then we're going to put some clean shield on it. And that will just make it look real nice. Now, Dana and I have gotten a little fancy, and we've gone to Michael's and just got a square felt square, whatever the heck you call them. I don't know, they're in the crafting section. They're like 75 cents. And they'll probably last you for like 100 of these. We just cut a strip from the felt and just glued it on the inside with silicone glue. And that is kind of nice to have with the glass bottle being a glass holder. And it just makes it look a little bit classier. So you definitely don't want to be in a situation where somebody's being haphazard and just shoving the bottle in there. I don't think that they would, but you never know. And they say it chipped. So yeah, just get a square piece of felt and whatever color you wanted. You can even match it with the lizard. Like this is a lizard, right? Yeah, lizard. And then you just cut a strip from it with scissors and then glue it on the inside, and it'll just make a nice little, little soft thing for the hole. All right, here we go. I'm having time to get my words out here. Okay, I'm going to go half speed on the Dremel, lots of water, and I'm going to go ahead and smooth this out. Now I have to tell you guys, that was really hard for me to do when it was almost 2 feet away from me on the side, and I'm doing it towards the camera so I can't see it. So yeah, you want to bring that a lot closer to you when you're doing it. All right, let's get that white marker off there, and that white marker likes to be stubborn because it's oil-based, so I'm going to use some Goo Gone and just kind of spray that on, and then you're going to go ahead and you can see it comes right off. Get all of that off there. Okay. All right, and then I'm going to clean with alcohol and water. Got some right there. I got a little bit right there. And now I'm going to clean this guy very nicely. All right, we'll skip the felt thing right now, but what I'm going to do is use this. This is Clean Shield. This is a way to cheat when you're grinding things. You can put it on the glass. All we're going to do, this is a tile and tub protectant that AE Glass sells. It's fantastic. A lot of artists use it. And what it does is it gives a satin finish. I cannot tell you, that is way too much. That's way too much. I mean, this thing is, I'm going to rub it in. You don't want this to be greasy. So I rub that in to the towel, and then I just go over everything that I grinded, and that makes it a satin polish. I could have done a little bit better job with the Dremel, but we're going to go with it. You get the point. And that's because I really could not see. I was trying to do. But anyways, there you go. All right, so we've got this guy cleaned up now. See, black clothes work nicely. And now we're going to put some little Clean Shield in there, so that looks nice. And you want to put the Clean Shield in the whole hole. So when I do the dremeling, I go around the edge with the ball, and then I also go on the inside edge so the grinding matches, if that makes sense, okay? So that way I can just put the Clean Shield on and it all matches. Definitely, guys, I mean, try to put some felt or something like that. If anybody has any other ideas, I'd love to hear them too. The felt, it's not that bad. You just got to get the right length going. But I think it would be nice with something in there. I was looking for rubber gasket, but I didn't find one. But maybe you guys could come to the Facebook page with your ideas. So now I'm going to test this on camera to see if this works. Let's see if she's full of it or not, okay? All right, so here's my bottle in there. Come on, baby. Woo! Floating bottle holder. Look at that. Is that awesome or what, guys? Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. We had a great time. I had a wonderful time these past couple months getting this together for you guys. This was a lot of fun for me. As you guys know, this was going to be a paid class, and then I just had this wonderful idea. I woke up in the middle of the night and said, I'm going to give it to the people. So I went to Facebook, and I said, if I get 2,000 likes, then I would give this class for free, and we got over 2,000 likes, and so you got it for free, and so I hope that you enjoyed it. Of course, we appreciate your support. If you get your supplies from aaeglass.com, the 18 karat gold transfers are exclusively at aaeglass.com, so you'd have to get them there. And so we appreciate that. There's a supply list in your folder. We also cater to wholesalers. And guys, please go to our website and look at the Education Center. We have top-notch education films filmed and edited professionally, all in 4K, multiple camera angles. This is quality stuff by world-renowned artists. Please take a look. And also, you can just go and watch some of my free videos if you can take it anymore. Everybody, thank you very much. Signing off.